Good evening and welcome to our third online Board of Education meeting. The Board of Education acknowledges that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of the Lakota people. Last week, Premier Horgan announced that a limited and voluntary return to school for some students will take place in the latter part of this school year. And in a meeting with the Minister of Education, board chairs were informed that children in grades kindergarten to 5 shall be invited to attend classes on a part-time basis. Chief Medical Officer Bonnie Henry advised everyone that British Columbians are now moving to a stage where personal decision-making shall be exercised. Each household will have to make decisions about how much they are willing to be exposed to other people who may or may not be shedding the virus that causes COVID-19. Up until now, while the situation has been distressing for us all, we have not had to make many decisions as they have been made for us. Businesses have been closed and we've been told to stay home, and students have been offered distance learning. In the near future, parents of students in grade K to 5 will have to decide whether or not to send their young children back to school on a part-time basis. School District 72 Campbell River has made the health and safety of students our highest priority, and also the health and safety of staff equally so. We will do everything in our power to mitigate the risk of passing on COVID-19. Transmission of the disease on Vancouver Island is very low, and most people have been doing a great job of social distancing. It's not my place to offer advice to parents in their decision making. In this situation, there's no right or wrong. It's up to parents, and whatever parents decide on an individual basis is the right decision for them, their children, and their family. I know my son and daughter-in-law are struggling with the decision to return my grandson to daycare. It's a tough decision, and one that as parents is theirs alone to make. And now I turn to our superintendent, Dr. Jeremy Morrow, for his comments.
Thank you very much, Board Chair Franklin. I just want to start by expressing appreciation for the patience and understanding of our parents as we continue to provide remote learning opportunities in this disrupted time. For our staff, our students, and parents, this has been a massive shift and a monumental undertaking. Teachers, educational assistants, and principals and vice principals are really missing their daily interactions with their students, and we are aware that trying to support learning at home while also working and managing other responsibilities has been incredibly taxing and very complex for parents. And while we continue to strive to strike an appropriate balance, I know that our teachers have and continue to be open and flexible in adjusting expectations. This past week, our district delivered approximately 230 food hampers with an estimated 240 hampers going out tomorrow. This is an increase of approximately 40 families from the beginning of the pandemic, and the needs continue to grow each week. If you are a family that is requiring help and we are missing you at this time, please don't hesitate to contact your school's principal or vice principal. We are committed to continue this support and this need to the very best of our capacity. I want to acknowledge that it is heartbreaking for this year's grads that prom dinner and dance and after grad party has had to be canceled. I want to assure our graduates that school grad committees continue to plan for a meaningful and safe celebration with commencement activities that will do our best to adequately acknowledge and celebrate the 13 years of commitment and achievement that you have all had. As both a former high school principal and a current parent of a grade 12, I know well how important this milestone is, and we remain committed in celebrating it. and we'll have more information about how commencement will look and provide it as soon as we are able to our graduates and their families. Plans have also been underway this week and last through student services, learning support teachers, classroom teachers, and educational assistants, and school-based teams to identify and find additional ways to support learners who have been identified as requiring additional supports. And Board Chair Franklin mentioned in his opening comments today how important personal decision-making will be. And I would like to finish these comments by just acknowledging the remarkable participation of our students and the youth in our community from our schools and how they have behaved during this pandemic. From carefully following protocols and being responsible to contributing to the noise to support our healthcare workers at 7 p.m. and the many youth cutout hearts in the windows, just to name a few. And as the grind of being distant from friends, I just want to continue to encourage our young people to make positive personal decisions and continue being responsible and leading and continue to be following and being led by our public health protocols and our public health officers. I just wanted to say thank you. And as there's room for me to speak further on the agenda, I'll provide the next bit of the pandemic response update at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Morrow. We're going to move to number 3 on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of April 21st, 2020. And the motion is that the minutes of the meeting of April 21st, 2020 are hereby approved as circulated or amended. May I hear a mover and seconder?
So moved, Kat Eddy.
Hagan, so moved.
Okay, moved Eddy, seconded Hagan. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is approved. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Hearing none, I'll move forward. Are there any additions or alterations to the agenda? Okay, now we'll move on to the next item of business, which is the approval of the agenda, and the motion is that the agenda is hereby approved as circulated or amended. May I please hear a mover and seconder?
So moved, Kerr.
Seconded, Susan Wilson.
Richard,
Yes.
sorry, I had trouble unmuting. I wondered if I might add an item to 15, other business.
Okay. An item for number 15. And what's the nature of that business?
It's help, UBC help.
Okay. So we'll add that to the agenda. Unless I hear any objections, that is added. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion is carried. The agenda is approved. And now we move on to the report of the board decisions from May 5th, 2020. Vice Chair John Kerr will report.
We had a meeting that went on, well, it was a pretty full meeting for the hour that we had. We discussed personnel items and received updates on various and assorted operational issues. We completed our business just before the 7:30 time, so our meeting is done for the evening.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to item.
Just 1 second.
Yes.
I think that the date you're probably looking for is the 12th on that.
Right.
12th. Oh yes, the 12th. Thank you.
Instead of the 5th.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the agenda has a little bit of a
Yep.
glitch in it. On number 7, it should say reported board decisions for May 12th rather than May 5th. Okay, so let's move on to our agenda item number 9, which is an assessment week education update presentation. And we are welcoming presenters Timberline Principal Laird Rulin, Vice Principal Joanna Broadbent, and Carey High Vice Principal Louise Panziera. Welcome, and we look forward to what you have to say to us today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. We already had our first glitch and we haven't started. Joanna, I'm Louise Panziera and I'm the Vice Principal of Carey High, and we did want to thank you for having us tonight because we know there are lots of things to talk about in these stressful times. So thank you for letting us do this, and I think it's going to be enjoyable for everyone and remind us what school is all about. This slide has a quote, every child, every chance, and every day. And it was a quote that spoke to us when Mike McKay, a retired administrator, came and talked to our senior leadership team a while ago. And we think it represents some of the things that you are about to see. Another thing that Joanna and I want to stress is that we are here presenting 2 very special weeks throughout the year. And we wanted to let you know that we are presenting, but what you're about to see is a result of a lot of hard work and dedication from all of our teachers over the last few years.
Thanks, Louise. So we're going to be doing a little bit of bopping in and out of the screen here just as we maintain our social distancing. I'm Joanna Broadbent, Vice Principal of Timberline, and I just wanted to let you know that Laird is actually not presenting with us. He's kind of our support group, so that's why he ended up on the agenda, and I believe he's here with us in listening and out there cheering us on. So as Louise says, thanks very much for this opportunity. I was just kind of, as we were starting the meeting today, I was thinking a little bit about all the things that were being shared and Dr. Morrow's presentation, and I suddenly was thinking, wow, we almost could be presenting to you the work and learning that our teachers have done in the past 6 or 7 weeks. The learning curve has been unbelievable for them. The different type of assessment that they would normally do during assessment week looks very, very different. And the collaborating they've been doing, the sharing they've been doing, the work that they have done in supporting our students in the past 7 weeks has been amazing. And I hope at some time you can hear that story as well. So just as a reminder, we're doing this presentation because we were to be doing it back, I believe it was in February. And at that time, we had just done our January assessment week, and we thought it would be really valuable to share with you what's been happening in our schools in the last 4 years. So Louise and I we've worked together for about 12 years now as teacher colleagues as well as admin colleagues, and we've always shared a great and enthusiastic feel for learning, of course, and for assessment. And so when we moved into high school, we invited teachers to join us in having a look at traditionally what has been done during assessment week. And we asked those really challenging and critical questions around, is this the best way to really look at where kids are at in their learning, and really are we meeting our students' needs? So that's where kind of this 4-year process, what you're going to see tonight, where we've come from and kind of where we're at and the learning still to be done. I think that's it. Yeah. So Louise, I'll step out of the way.
So in this time, we're going to share with you the evolution of assessment week over the past 4 years. And assessment week is normally at the end of semester 1 and at the end of semester 2. You'll see some examples of summative assessment tools. You'll see the ways in which teachers are really uncovering what students are learning and how they're learning. And at the end, some possible next steps and considerations that teachers would like to pursue. And we'll stop every now and then if you have any questions about 2 or 3 slides that we've shown you. But for now, Joanna, do you want to go on to the next one?
Yeah. So we're going to give you a little bit of a picture of what we used to do and now what we do. So if you were to go back in time, say January 2016, you would have seen a gym loaded with something in the range of 250 to 300 desks. There would be 2 to 3 exams happening during that time, 4 to 5 teachers invigilating, and possibly not the teacher that actually taught that course. There would be one type of exam offered, and these exams would be quite high stakes, so worth a large percentage of course marks. And I think teachers started to look at that process and that practice. And as BC's new curriculum came in, as our assessment practice had to align with the way that we are learning about our kids and looking at our kids. We started to ask these questions about what can we do differently that will tell us a little bit more about how our kids are doing and perhaps be a little bit more accurate about what they know and what they can do with their learning.
So now the focus is on formative and summative assessment. It's on not just what kids know, but what they're able to do and what they understand and how deeply they understand. The kinds of things that teachers and students are doing during this week as a summative evaluation. Kids are allowed now to demonstrate their creative thinking skills, their collaborative skills, their communication skills. And also within the assessment week is Provincial Assessments. So that's why we have currently assessment weeks at the end of the semester to coincide with that. Yeah.
I was just thinking, I don't know if we said this at the beginning, but if any of you have questions or you want to go a little bit more in depth in one of our slides or curious about something, please feel free to interrupt us and ask those questions, because of course that helps guide the presentation. So our next couple of slides, we're going to show you examples of a traditional exam schedule and what our exam schedules look like now, or assessment week schedule looks like now, which is built by teachers. So here you can see just a couple of days of an exam schedule. This would have all have happened in the gym. There would have been 4 or 5 invigilators, depending on the number of exams, the number of kids sitting in the gym at that one time. And everything would have been exam-based. Would have been a government exam, or they would have been Timberline or Carey High exams, depending on what was scheduled for that particular day. So morning, afternoon, kids loading the gym, you know, backpacks, nothing goes in, very formal. Stressful for a lot of kids to manage that kind of an exam situation. And what it looks like now is
very different. I'm just going to grab a chair for a second. So Carey High has the exact same format, and I'll just describe a little bit about what you see. So right now it's all color coded, because each color represents a different type of assessment. We try and categorize it. So for example, the light blue section is class exams that are taking place. The opportunities in purple are around learning conversations, project-based presentations, interviews. The salmon pink part is an opportunity for some project completions with your teacher or in smaller groups. And of course, we have the provincial assessments scheduled as well. So it's eclectic, it's diverse, it offers a wide range of opportunities, and teachers are selecting assessment tools that match what the kids are doing in class. It's really amazing. It's probably one of my favorite, or 2 of my favorite weeks of the school year. And we also need to stress that this type of schedule is possible because we are able to have that flexibility. We are able to create a schedule very different from the 4-block regular class schedule that we have, so that these opportunities can happen. Are there any questions at this point before we go on about what you've seen or what you've heard?
So having had a chance to have a look at what that assessment week might look like, what we wanted to do at this point is kind of pull those pieces apart and walk you through all these different variety of assessments. We've got some pictures of kids participating in projects and learning conversations, just to kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse into what our school would look like during that time. And I completely agree with Louise. I find it a really interesting time of the year. One would think it was our schools were a very quiet place. We obviously try to keep it quiet in areas where kids are writing exams, but there's lots going on. There's science fairs. There's conversations happening, there's group presentations happening. A class teacher might have their whole class in where she might be doing a tutorial. It might be a small group of kids working in a classroom. So yeah, we'll just kind of walk you through each one of these and share with you what the student experience is during that week.
So the next couple of slides are some examples of project-based summative assessment. So these are opportunities for students to synthesize their learning into one project. At times it's content specific, at other times teachers have asked them to find an interest or a passion based on something that they've been learning throughout the course or for a particular unit. They're really able to show their skills. They have a chance to communicate their thinking. There's some processing time when they're presenting a project or talking to a class about their project. So I just want to show you the next slide. I should also say that Joanna and I have seen different things in our schools around these projects. So I've seen it where a class is taking some time before assessment week to do the presentations, and then assessment week is used as a follow-up with those kids to meet with the teachers and talk about what their strengths were in that project, some goals moving forward. I've seen in the next slide, for example, I think, yeah, I see someone presenting to a small group of students during assessment week. So there's still opportunities to get questions from your peers, but in a smaller group environment. It's quite, yeah, it's quite captivating. And again, it's just the opportunity for kids to show their deep thinking.
Another way that teachers are really finding valuable in finding out what their kids know is through conversations, and what finding the benefits of their conversations are. Students have a choice in what it is they want to talk about. It is possibly their passion area, so they have lots to say about it. They're actually demonstrating what they know and where they want to go with their learning, and teachers have an opportunity to really dig in deep to ask those questions to prompt kids so they are able to truly share what it is that they know. We have a few slides on this one. Uh-oh, if I take you back, I apologize. No, so this is kind of the process. Here's an example of an English 12 class where it might have been in the past a provincial exam. Students, one of the pieces that the students might have to do is sign up for this conversation. So they choose their time, the time that fits best for them, and they're asked to prepare and spend some time really thinking about their deep learning. They're often asked to bring a portfolio of their learning. This example here is where students were asked to do a mind map of all of their learning in their Psychology 11 class. And they're asked to really think about what is their lasting learning. And we have a few teachers in both schools now that they're kind of using that language with our kids around what did you get from this, and where will you take it, and what's different for you now in this course. So they're asked to be reflective, they're asked to be knowledgeable as well. They have to be able to speak on their learning, but it's not just a list of facts that they're regurgitating. It's much more of a greater depth of knowledge, which is what we're looking for. In this next slide, these are 2 Carey High teachers. And what's important is to just look at the kinds of questions that teachers are asking our young learners these days. So they're strength-based. They're still required to show knowledge and content. And within these questions, the core competencies are illuminated as well, which is really important. So, you know, these teachers, that's Thomas Deesh, right? Yeah, Thomas. He is recording his students. This is actually really a great thing. And I'm going to ask Louise to speak about this because it's this is the piece, Louise, where he records it and he embeds it in his report cards. Yeah, I'm going to ask Louise to pop in and speak about this photo.
Yeah, so the learning conversation takes place, and then that's exactly what Joe explained. When a student goes into their report cards, there is a link, and the student and the parent can listen to the conversation and review it. So very interesting, deep thinking types of questions that our teachers are asking.
Yeah, that was good. You can go to the next one now.
There's also other opportunities as well during this week. We have students who are catching up on labs. Here there's a couple of photos of the Iron Chef, so a food competition that takes place at Carey High. Again, tutorials we've talked about, some study supports, because the assessment week is the last week of the semester. So while all of this is happening, teachers are also preparing for their new classes and new courses the following week. So sometimes the tutorials and study supports are to help kids in their next courses. Shops are giving time for students to complete projects and take home those pieces. There are science fairs, and there's even a photo there of each Skills for Life class got together and spent some time together during the assessment week, which was quite nice to see.
So we've talked a lot about different opportunities other than an exam, and it's still important to know that exams are still an important assessment tool, and it is a way to determine the what's next. But what's different about the way that our students write exams now is they're written in classrooms. They're written in places that are familiar. They're much more student-centered. The idea behind this is that it builds confidence. They know the people that are around them. They know that their classroom teacher is there if they need some sort of support or they have a question to be asked. We still recognize that our students who are heading off to post-secondary opportunities will still need to have that experience and understand what it feels like to write an exam. So there is definitely a place for exams. And our teachers are doing a lot of work to try and ensure now that kids have some sort of they get a response around how they did in that exam and an opportunity to have a look at those exams and see what they did well and what their challenges were in those exams. So still really important. Oopsie, too close.
Again, we just wanted to stress the appreciation that teachers have using their instructional time to create or to have a flexible schedule so they can count what really counts. And there's just 4 quotes, but they are representative of how teachers value not only what they do, but what they see their colleagues doing in both schools during that week as well. The provincial assessments, just to speak to them briefly, there's been quite a change in the provincial assessments as well. So that could take a whole other presentation that maybe teachers will do one day that I think you'd find interesting, especially with the connection to literacy and numeracy. There is a grade 10 numeracy and literacy assessment, And there is next year grade 12 literacy assessment. What is different about these is that they are not tied to a course. It's actually assessing a student's cumulative skills, basically from their whole school experience. There is a lot of deep thinking that is needed to accomplish these. Students have opportunities to write the exam more than once. It's supposed to be formative in nature so that we get the results, the kids get the results in time, that they could have a chance to rewrite that in that same year. So yeah, quite a difference there. And we also have, as opposed to the traditional exams that were one day at one time, they open up these exams for a week, and we can schedule our students as we as benefits to school. So yeah, very different provincial assessments as well.
I think the other piece around provincial assessments is the conversations that we're having at school, in our schools, around who is responsible for preparing those students for those assessments now. And of course, we realize that it's all of us. When you look at, and I'm not too sure how many of you have had an opportunity to look at a question from a numeracy exam, but there's a lot of words on that page. There's a lot of text for kids to manipulate. So at this point, you know, we look at it and think, okay, so there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of synthesizing, there's a lot of understanding, there's a lot of vocabulary, but there's also a lot of math. So what we're realizing more and more is it's all of us who are responsible for those assessments. So this is our final slide, and it's just kind of a little piece about what teachers are looking forward to. And I think continuing to learn about student-centered assessment and the kind of assessment that our teachers are doing right now online with kids really aligns with that learning. One of our math teachers was very, very concerned about the assessment during this time because, you know, they use a lot of tests and classroom tests, and they were worried about how are they going to, you know, ensure that their students are writing these tests in an appropriate way. I mean, they're not there to make sure that the books aren't open, and how do they really know what kids know? So one of our teachers just did a one-on-one with a student recently, and the student sat there, wrote or just did one example of a question, and they talked about it as they went along, and the teacher's comments were, wow, I really learned a lot just sitting there about learning about one question from my students. So lots to learn about, lots of different kinds of assessments. I think what's important is that time to have that uninterrupted conversations with students, and it's what's really, really valued about our assessment week right now, is it gives us that time to slow down, to really think about what is it kids need to share with us about their learning. And Louise, do you want to do those last two? Sorry, I kind of flipped it around there.
That's fine. No, that's okay. No, I think Joanna did a great job covering what they're looking forward to, structures that are in place to support really good assessment that kids need, and the opportunity just to do things the right way, which, like Joanna said, takes time and a lot of work. That's just a very small window of a lot that happens during those weeks, but we did feel we wanted to give you some sense of what you would expect if you walked into our halls and our classes during those weeks. That is all that we have to share. Unless you have any questions that you wanted to ask Joanna and I, we'd be happy to answer.
Excuse me, Louise.
Yes.
This is Trustee Eddie. Just as a question, these are all phenomenal tools, but I was wondering, is there any carryover of some of these assessment techniques that could inform assessment practices at an elementary level?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so these assessment techniques, if you look at, you know, there are some guiding principles for assessment K to 12, and that is to find an assessment that fits the kind of learning you're wanting to find out from kids, and then you decide what assessment tool is going to be best for that. And then once you have that information, what's the goal for the kid and what's next. So a lot of these pieces, you may not see exactly the same thing happening, but the purpose for sure, I think you would see a variation of it from K to 12. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Trustee Hagan? I was just wondering, I'm really excited about the measuring tools you're using and how you're integrating and you're actually finding out how much a child knows, how much a learner is learning. How are we doing as far as integrating to the next level of education, whatever that may be? Let's say it's university or schools. Are they up to speed on what we're doing? And is that integration accepting our evaluation of what they're doing?
I think to answer that in two parts, I think if we look at our K to 12 system, the new curriculum, the redesigned curriculum has an emphasis on the core competencies, and those are present and those are identified and those are nurtured from K to 12. A lot of thinking skills going on along with that. So again, it might look differently, but they're there from K to 12. I think we are preparing our students in different ways post-secondary. I think if we focus just on post-secondary, some of them are moving towards different types of assessments and some are not. I have a son who had his first year university and it was exams and it was in-class essays and they were timed. But I think what they will take with them is the ability to really do some deeper thinking. So whether you're answering a question on an exam or whether it's a timed essay write, you're going to have to show some meaningful, deep thinking. And I think that's where we're moving our students to and doing a really good job of preparing them for. Yeah.
I was just going to add a little bit more to that too. We did a professional development day with North Island College back in September. And they're very interested in our new curriculum, which I probably shouldn't be saying new anymore because it's been in for a while, but fairly new still for secondary. And they're very interested in our assessment practices. And so I think that, I mean, that's an excellent question you asked. I think there's a lot of interest in what's happening now in the K to 12 world and how to manifest that at the university college level. Louise talked about a bit about her son. My son graduated from UVic last year, and he found once he got to his kind of third and fourth year, his assessments were very much project-based. And so, you know, I think that we're preparing our kids for as many different kinds of responses to their learning as we possibly can. And by giving them a choice, they'll find out where their skill set is and hopefully be able to develop that. They'll also find out where their challenges are and hopefully be able to develop that as well. So thank you for that question. Any other questions? Nope.
Chairman Franklin, can I say a word here? Possible?
Yeah.
Hi, thanks.
Go ahead, Larry.
Principal at Timberline. Hi, Richard. I just wanted to acknowledge the work of Joanna and Louise at their respective schools, the leadership that both have shown over the last number of years, and I think their middle school background has really shown what's happened here, and just the great work that's happening at both schools, and thank them both for that. And also, I'd like to just acknowledge that as Joanna Broadbent heads off into her retirement at the end of this school year, the decades of work that she has done and the leadership she's shown, and the hundreds of students that she has impacted in a positive way. So thank you so much, Joanna, for everything you've done for our school district over the years. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Laird. Thank you on behalf of both Louise. Well, I'll let Louise speak in a bit. I just wanted to have the opportunity to say I've been in the district for, oh my gosh, I think it's 24 years, but I've just loved every bit of it. I've had so many different opportunities. I've worked with amazing people, my teacher colleagues over the years, fantastic. And of course, my administrative colleagues over the years, it's just been an absolute pleasure. So thank you, Laird. And Louise, you probably want to say something too.
No, I just wanted to say thank you very much. And no, that's all we have to say.
I wanted to ask a question, but I couldn't didn't realize my mic was muted. This is John Kerr here. Yeah. I've been just watching the propagation of information that is essentially wrong, not truthful information, but information is designed to confuse and throw people off, both in politics and also now, you're really starting to see it with the responses to the COVID epidemic and social distancing and self-isolation. Is there something in there, I may have missed it, but is there something in there where kids learn the skills of being able to discriminate between information that is factual, that is reality-based, and information that essentially is, well, I mean, you can listen to a doctor talk about the pandemic, or you can listen to somebody who watched 3 YouTube videos talk about it. So are we teaching our children to be discriminating consumers of information?
Yes, we are. One of the core competencies is critical thinking skills. And if you were, and yes, just to answer your question about looking at information and analyzing it and discriminating it and finding out where the source is coming from and digging down to find out what they're really trying to say is a skill that we are teaching our kids, I think even before they enter high school, because we have to. So the critical thinking competency is huge in the curriculum. And if you were to take I don't know, if you take a social studies curriculum from grade 6 and a math one from grade 10 and various subject areas in different grades, and you looked at the skills the kids had to do, the critical thinking is in there in all of them in some way. So we are, like, now more than ever, I completely agree. We're teaching our kids how to be critical, discriminant thinkers. That's a huge piece now. And that's why we have these different opportunities, because how do you assess that? You assess that kind of thing by projects and learning conversations and interviews. So that's another reason we appreciate the assessment week, because it reflects and we can assess some of those things that we're teaching them that you mentioned. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to thank Louise and Joanna so much for your presentation tonight, and also Laird, thank you for your participation as well.
Richard?
Yeah.
Could I just, I'm sorry, I had trouble with my muting as well. Could I just have a comment, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this presentation. I really am excited about it, and being an early childhood educator, I see a lot of overlap in terms of what we are trying to do with our 3- and 4-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've found to be a bit of a challenge, though, is that we can sometimes lose parents in a bit of jargon, educational jargon. Mm-hmm. And so I see a lot of parents who get nervous or aren't certain that they understand what the core competencies really mean. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to do some more work in helping to better communicate to parents and families exactly what those look like and how they translate into life skills that will be immensely important to their children's well-being.
Okay, thanks, Joyce. Just to sort of give a historical perspective, there was a time long ago where assessment was basically to peg kids at where they were, and quite often on a normal curve. And now I'm delighted to hear that as part of the assessment, students get descriptive feedback. They get they have conversations with their teachers about where they did well, or where they needed to improve, and then are often given the opportunity to show their knowledge a second time, because it's about learning. It's not about trying to assign a number to a person or to rank them. It's such a more human way of dealing with learners, and I think it's also completely fair. I think the thing that the public has to understand is that in order to do that, I mean, it's easy to hand a kid a piece of paper, mark it, and say, well, there's your mark. It's harder and takes much more time to say, okay, let's take a look at what you know. Here's where you need to improve. Let's talk about that, and come back and show me next week that you've learned this. And that is, to my mind, a huge advance in education since over the last, say, 10 years. It's huge.
I agree.
And yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you again, and it was really a great presentation. I really appreciate what you've done, and I learned a lot about what's happening at the high school in terms of assessment now.
Richard, can I just add my voice really quickly? I just wanted to just come back to that quote that that the two leaders shared there, which was count what counts. And I think the manner in which those schools are counting also shows the value that those educators have. And I think having worked both with Louise and Joanna, I just want to echo that those are two leaders that have always kept the whole child at the center of all decision making, and I'm grateful for the leadership that they've provided. And I think the manner in which we are counting at those two schools really indicates the values that the whole collective staff has moved forward in embracing. So thank you to both of you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
What do we do, Kai?
Thank you very much.
Just click the X in the corner and you're gone.
Just leave.
Yeah, there you go.
Leave anytime you want.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the next part of our agenda, which is educational issues, and we're going to ask Dr. Morrow to give us a pandemic update.
Yeah, well, again, even though they've exited, it is nice to be reminded of some of the great work that's happening in schools, and as our focus has moved so intensely to responding appropriately to this emerging, evolving situation of COVID-19, it is good to be reminded of some of that great work that's been happening and continues to happen in our schools. So tonight I'm just going to further some of the opening comments just to discuss and further the conversation that started with an announcement from Premier John Horgan last week. And as many of you are probably aware, the education sector does factor into the provincial government's consideration and their plans for reopening our province. I'm going to give a little bit of context, and I think until such time as a vaccine or community immunity occurs, it is helpful to picture the school system on a dial with 5 distinct stages. So stage 1 would be schooling like it was before spring break. Stage 5 would be a full shutdown, only providing students with remote learning opportunities. Stage 4 is where our schools are currently at, with the provision of childcare for essential services workers, as well as increasing supports for our vulnerable learners. Stage 3 is in-class learning on a part-time basis for students in kindergarten to grade 5, and access to more in-class learning and support as needed for grades 6 to 12 on a part-time basis. In stage 3, remote and online learning is intended to continue to be available to all students, although there would be some necessary modifications in kindergarten to grade 5 as a significant emphasis would be placed on the planning and the delivery of in-class lessons on a part-time basis to kindergarten to grade 5. What's anticipated is that if the curve continues to be flattened, that it is likely that we will be moving as a sector and as a district into stage 3 before the end of this school year. I want to recognize that a possible return to part-time instruction will be voluntary for parents, and a survey went out from the district yesterday, or from each school yesterday, to all kindergarten and grade 5 parents to help us with the planning for the possibility of moving to stage 3. And we're asking that you complete that survey this week. That will help us with our planning. And while we still have a high degree of uncertainty around some specifics, what is very clear is that the safety of staff and students will continue to be paramount in all planning and is foundational to all decisions that will be made. We are committed to ensuring that as a system that we adhere to the guidance and protocols that will be established for our sector through public health. We are anticipating that we will receive further clarity shortly from the Ministry of Education, and as soon as we do, we will be communicating with our parents about how a possible move to stage 3 will look. And so I think one of the pieces that we also understand is that next year, depending on where we are in that curve, is that if we picture it on a dial, that it could move in either direction depending on how the results are both provincially and as well as the local piece. So that's an update. It's a significant move that will likely occur before the end of this school year, assuming that the positive trends continue to stay.
I have a question, please.
Okay.
I believe we lost Richard.
Oh, we lost our chair. Okay.
So go for it, Joyce.
I'll take over for him while he's gone, okay? Go ahead, Joyce.
I'm wondering, with the end of the year approaching, and traditionally we have had some programs like Ready, Set, Learn and Welcome to Kindergarten in order to kind of facilitate the transition of preschoolers into kindergarten. Is there any thoughts or plans or strategies for how that might take place under these unusual circumstances?
Yeah, thank you, Trustee McMahon. Yes, we are planning for transitions. Transitions is a key piece for us. It refers to our students pre-kindergarten that are going to join us next year, as well as our grade 5s who will be transitioning to middle school, our grade 8s who will be transitioning to high school, and of course, on many people's minds and hearts is our grade 12s as they transition out of our schools. So those will be particular areas of focus for us as we look at increasing opportunities for students. We would like a meaningful way for our grade 12s to be supported in their transition, as well as those other areas in our system where we know that in a traditional year, that there is some uncertainty for those young ones as they make and embark on those significant transitions. And so we are working on those plans, and that includes the Welcome to Kindergarten.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, this is Trustee Hagan.
Yeah, go ahead, Daryl.
Yeah, as we move forward, I think it's really important that we all acknowledge that our community cares for each other. And in that, I think we have to be careful. We have to be careful in every step that we take now. There's been a lot of sacrifice that's going on. People have been self-isolating, and as we move forward, I would hate to see that we somehow take a step backwards. And I know that that's what this district is all about, is putting families, our older community, and everyone involved at ease. And I think it's not about how much they're going to learn in the next short while if they do go back to school. It's about how are we going to proceed from here on. And I think that'll be a big, huge learning curve for everyone, for all of our teachers, all of our educators, for our janitors, for our crews that are going to be busing, and for you folks as well. So I'm really cautioning us to be careful, to be mindful, and to move forward, not worrying about whether our kids are going to be learning something really exciting in the next 3 weeks, but that they're going to be excited about learning, that they're going to be happy to be able to be engaged with their teachers, perhaps physically, and to say hello and have a strategy that's going to include the summer and the beginning of next year, however that will look. It's here for a while, and we're here for a while. And together, I think we can take those careful steps and be mindful of each other and be kind.
Thank you, Trustee Hagan.
All right, thank you. Okay, so no other comments on the update. So we'll move to business administration, and that's finance warrant number 12. And there's a motion. So the motion reads that the finance warrant number 12, dated December 31, 2019, be approved as presented. Can we have a mover for that motion?
So moved, Hagan.
Okay, seconded.
Eddie.
Okay, seconded by Eddie. Okay, Secretary Treasurer Patrick, is there anything you would like to address in this? Is Kevin there? No? I guess we've lost Kevin.
Yes, no, I can see him.
So I'm just trying to assist getting Richard back on, but no luck. So no, I don't have anything further for the finance warrant.
Okay, well, are there any questions of Kevin? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say
Aye.
nay. Opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion is carried. So we will move on then to item 13B, budget proposals, and we'll let Secretary Treasurer take it away.
Okay. So yeah, it's unfortunate if Board Chair Franklin is not able to get on, because I think this is quite a significant budget proposal for School District 72. Now, Kai, I'm just wondering if you can have me share my screen.
Yeah, just share screen, whatever you'd like, and I can put it up.
Okay. So, can you see the spreadsheet?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. So yeah, okay. So I'm really excited to be sharing this 2021 budget proposal with the board. Unfortunately, this year's budget process was significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Due to safety measures, we weren't able to have our in-person stakeholder meetings that we have had in the past. And it really has been a goal of ours to increase feedback participation. So unfortunately, we weren't able to do that this year. The whole COVID pandemic then changed our process and delayed the process. We still knew we wanted to hear from stakeholders. So we created a budget presentation that we sent out to stakeholders, and we also created a survey for feedback. We were able to send that out. Unfortunately, the timeline was quite tight to get responses. The good news is we were able to reach each stakeholder group, but the bad news is that we didn't have quite as much feedback as we have in the past. We had about half as much as we did last year, but we we actually had the same amount as the year before. So on the one hand, that represents that we tried really, really hard to get a lot of feedback and participation last year. And we hope in future years that we're able to get back up to that piece. So now to the exciting part. The board's new strategic plan is really the focus of this year's budget. It really is and should be the focus of each budget. A strategic plan without resources, support, or a focus is really just a bunch of ideas. And our district has been changing through the years of being able to first support with a small budget